I started this book sitting in sunshine in an attempt to try to find something new in life, find something safe, find something welcoming about the world around me. And I hope that as they read this, they see the forest and they see the rocks and they see bugs and they see that cockroach you're about to smush, living, breathing things and living, breathing entities, and that there's so much joy constantly happening all around everybody, and that there is something to leave your, Netflix binge that could be equally interesting, in a random patch of, and that we have this incredible tool in our brain that allows us to wander those kind of places and, experience that surreal landscape in our heads, I suppose. But just have fun. And this book is really trying to give examples and take the reader on a little journey of what if those trees are playing hide and seek? What if that rock was writing a letter to the rain? What does that mean? What's the context for me? And in a world where things don't talk, how can I connect to?
Welcome to Minutes with Mango, Life in Motion. I'm your host, Johnny Mango. This is the place where we inquire about lifestyle, culture, and careers. Weekly, we meet with new guests that make a contribution of their insightful stories about their careers and how those careers impact their lifestyle and culture. Hello, everybody. This is Johnny Mango, and today we have an interesting guest with us. He's a young author who's written about nature, and I thought it would be something that everybody could relate to, and so I'd like to introduce you to Daniel Stigmon. Hello, Daniel, and welcome.
Howdy, thanks for having me.
So, Daniel, tell us, what book have you written? What's going on?
Yeah, I wrote a collection of poems and prose called Nature Thoughts. And I called it Nature Thoughts because they're not all poems, they're not all stories, they're not all random tidbits, but they are all about nature and about exploring the world in a way where everything around you is alive, and alive in a way that it's talking to you, the trees, the rocks, the bugs, whatever.
Really? Okay. So the world comes alive through nature.
Yeah, basically anthropomorphizing anything you can think of in any way you can think of, or any way I did think of. So in an effort to kind of, I think, just kind of bridge a gap. I don't know. I think the people I talk to a lot of the time who say they want to get out more, they don't get out more because they don't know what to do when they get out in nature. There's a whole world if you make one up in your head, I think, and that's kind of, I find that to be a very fun time.
So, Daniel, can you tell us a little bit about your history and how you found nature, or how you became interested in nature?
Yeah, I grew up in Flagstaff, Arizona, up in the mountains, and my house growing up was right next to a big swath of national forest. And so every day when we would go hang out, we would be in the woods. We would be in just a beautiful golden ponderosa pine forest. It always felt, the way the trees are spaced in those forests, everything always feels kind of like a stage out there, I think, because of the way that there's these huge patches of clear, and then it's just surrounded by this like dense kind of wall of trees that's somehow also not dense and you can walk through it. But it really affected how I see forests, in that they're just a playground. They're a big stage to be a goof, and you don't have to be a goof for anyone other than yourself. And just, the world is alive around you. You might as well dance through it. And so that, I grew up doing that, got really into rock climbing in high school. And so I found myself in these really kind of crazy spots, high on cliffs, up on mountains and canyons, in places where no one else other than other rock climbers a lot of the time would be. And it was very kind of, other than the person I was rock climbing with, it was very isolating, because you're usually either climbing up or you're hanging out while the other person climbs up and you're by yourself. And so you're just sitting there, maybe 700 feet up a cliff, and there's nothing. And so, you can either be scared, or you can, start painting cool, fun pictures and plays in your head about the things happening around you. And then from there, moved to the East Coast, found myself in a much denser forest, a much more heavily populated by insects and animals, and like a rainforest more so, which was really claustrophobic. And I really struggled to adapt to the new environment around me. And this was also around the time that COVID hit. And so I was just kind of isolated and in a very foreign environment. And there was nothing to go do in town, but the forest was safe. The forest was a comfortable place to go in that time. So I found myself at the Arboretum in Asheville a lot. And there's a little bench there that anyone who's gone to the Arboretum with me, they'll know the bench I point out with a lot of joy as the place where this book started. Because I was sitting there one day trying to figure out how to kind of find a way to adapt to this new environment. And the old mindset from the Ponderosa Forest on the West Coast and the rock climbing and the turning the world around me into a show and a fun thing to engage with that's alive in almost a comical way sometimes. I started writing about that because I can't remember if it was real or if it was fake, but in my head it's real. I was sitting on that bench and there's a little creek that runs by it, and there was an ant on a leaf, and it looked like he was surfing. And that little seed right there, it was just like, yeah, I can do this here. I can find a way to find that same kind of joy here. And so I started writing a story about this bee, trying to tell everyone the flood's coming. That one, unfortunately, didn't make it into the book. I didn't feel it was as strong of a piece to get in, but was very much so a very free-flowing stream of consciousness at that point, and really allowed me to connect with this foreign place in a way that I feel comfortable and cozy instead of claustrophobic.
Wow. So you've been into nature since you were a kid, and it's carried into adulthood.
Mm-hmm.
And you found yourself on the other side of the country, and were able to connect with nature there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. I guess it is, isn't it?
I mean, it's slowly becoming less everywhere, but it's, in the end, it's everywhere. There's going to be rocks.
Yeah. So with your book, tell me what you hope readers would take away from this book? What are they going to get from it?
I started this book sitting in sunshine in an attempt to try to find something new in life, find something safe, find something welcoming about the world around me. And I hope that as they read this, they see the forest and they see the rocks and they see bugs and they see that cockroach you're about to smush, living, breathing things and living, breathing entities, and that there's so much joy constantly happening all around everybody, and that there is something to leave your, Netflix binge that could be equally interesting, in a random patch of trees, and that we have this incredible tool in our brain that allows us to wander those kind of places and, experience that surreal landscape in our heads, I suppose, but just have fun. And this book is really trying to give examples and take the reader on a little journey of what if those trees are playing hide and seek? What if that rock was writing a letter to the rain? What does that mean? What's the context for me? And in a world where things don't talk, how can I connect to it?
So is this kind of a fantasy about nature's communication with itself?
Yeah, I would say so. I think that's a very good way to sum it up. It's I've always been fascinated and intrigued by the different, how much we can perceive with the tools we have in our head, and how much, for instance, like visible light on the spectrum of light is a very small sliver, but the spectrum of light goes on a very long way in one direction and a very long way up to X-rays and stuff and down to radio waves. And there's so much light we can't see, what sort of mystery, what things that our brains can't process lives in that realm, And so this is, the light that we can see is what we see when we go outside, what we see when we go to work. What we can't see is what happens all the other times.
So you've made an attempt to fill in the gap of maybe what we don't see, but could be possibly out there. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I think in a really loose way, this is definitely not me saying this is what happens. I think more importantly, for the sake of the little exercise, this is what I hope happens. And this is what I'm going to just allow myself to believe happens, because it's really quite fun. it would be in the realm of like Alice in Wonderland, maybe like Winnie the Pooh, where you have these characters, you have cats, and you have playing cards, and you have Mad Hatter's at a tea party, and bears all talking, doing stuff. But it's not a cohesive story like those. These are all kind of individual ideas written as either a short story, a poem, or just a random thought, just like a very quick.
You can open up in the middle of it and get something from it. It's not a
Absolutely.
start at the beginning and end at the end book.
No. This book is purposefully set up so that if it's sitting on the coffee table and you're gonna go sit outside for a second, you can pick it up and read for 2 minutes and get all the value you want. I think the only significant organization structure that if people are reading it should be focused on is that if you're reading something, check the section it's in, because it may need a little bit of context in that regard, because the book's broken up into forest thoughts, bug thoughts, cloud thoughts, and ocean thoughts. And so seeing where you're at in that might be really important to determine, clarify, or like, why is this person talking about this in this section or whatever. Yeah, or if you want to just read about bugs, there's a whole thing about bugs. There's 60 pieces on bugs.
That's a lot of bugs.
A lot of bugs. Yeah.
It's not describing bugs, from what I hear you say. It's about bugs communicating with different entities. Is that what it is?
Absolutely. It's about bugs, fighting a snake, or being in a weird symbiotic relationship with a tick. Or, just kind of the nature of how bugs live and how we live. There's one about a dung beetle who's rolling turd down the street, and it's like, well, that guy got a date doing that, but if I do that, I'm nuts.
So tell me, what's the message you would want somebody to take from this book?
I think the message is the world's alive, go participate. Everything's alive, welcome it and participate.
This might prompt somebody to want to turn off Netflix and go outside and explore.
I mean, that's the dream. That's what it did for me. I made a point when writing this, going out and getting in nature somewhere to do so. And a lot of the stories came from something happening while I was in nature. There was a point I was writing that flood story, and as I was writing it, this little red mite started running across my paper. And there was a moment where I was like, this guy's just pointing out my spelling mistakes to me. Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. And it was all very organic in that way of there's stuff happening all the time everywhere. Yeah. So I hope that they would find that and be curious to see what they would find in the world as they explore.
So what's your favorite piece in the book?
I think my favorite is the first one in the book, the one that opens it up, because it was the biggest it set the tone for the rest of the book when I was writing, because it was the piece that I wrote the night I got home from the first trip to the Arboretum after the flood one, because the flood one was very kind of loose, just like wacky characters, whatever. I'm not going to think too hard about this. But the first one's called Spider. And that night, I lay down to go to bed, and I woke up a couple hours later, and I had this something crawling across my face. And I was like, oh, that's an unpleasant feeling. And then the spider started crawling down my face, and I was like, I don't like this. This is really uncomfortable. But I was like, I'm not going to squish him. I'm just going to stay still for a second and see what happens. And the spider ran down my neck, across my arm, and down to my fingertip, and then just kind of stayed on my fingertip for a little while. And we were just kind of looking at each other for a second, and he ran away. But that was the first moment where I really felt a connection, I guess, to the spider. And I thought it would be really cute if he was actually really nervous to be there. He was really embarrassed, but he was there to wake me up, to show me this really cool web he made. And he was just on the end of my fingertip, nervously I'm sorry to do this, but it's just the moon with it looks really good right now. And just, if you just come outside, it'll be great. And so that set the tone of in these moments of interaction where I could have squished this spider, or I could have screamed and jumped, or I could have run, or whatever, all manner of reactions. Something in my head said, what's this little dude doing? What you want? what's going on? And it really bloomed into about 300 pages of moments like that, where a spider wants to show me a really cool web, taking what would otherwise be a adrenaline producing thing and turning it into something that's very peaceful, kind, and whimsical. I love whimsy. I can't get enough.
So what have you written other things? Have you written other books, or you written anything else?
I wrote a musical in high school. I did that as my senior project.
What happened to that? Did you do anything with it?
I did a weekend at the local community theater. Yeah,
All
it was.
right.
We did it on a stage. Yes, and it was wonderful, and it was very difficult. There's 2 acts. We had about 25 songs involved. A cast and crew of upwards of like 40 to 50 people, all high school students.
Okay.
Because we were trying to do it as like a high school production.
Yeah.
Separate from what our teachers were asking us to do. It's just like, let's go do a musical. So
you wrote that and produced it. Okay. All right. Anything else you've written, or is it? So this is your first book.
this is my first book, for sure. This is the first thing that I am printing and selling.
Do you have plans to do any more?
Yeah. The goal is to do a trilogy, if you will, a 3-book series where this one is forest, bug, cloud, and ocean. The next one, which is almost done and hoping to have it released on the first day of summer, is going to be cave, desert, tundra, and prairie. And then the third one is going to be rainforest, river, lake, and then I'm going to end it with city. And it's going to be a very natural contrast between this forest and natural world full of life and how nothing's really alive in the city. Yeah, but that rock over there is definitely alive. It's been growing for a million years,
Yeah. So you're gonna end on an urban note when you finish this series. That's interesting.
Yeah. The goal of it being, you've been in this place full of life and intrigue and mystery and joy. And I've written a few of the pieces for city, and it's like, wow, man, I'm miserable just doing this.
So
just to kind of solidify the message I feel I'm saying of there's a world that's so full of life, and it's just right there. You can absolutely go participate.
So tell me your motivation for writing about nature. What was it? I know you talked about growing up in the woods and near the woods and things like that, but what prompted you to make the effort to write this book about nature?
Yeah, I think in a time where we are increasingly drawn to our technology and our phones and our shows and our all sorts of things, I want as much as I can to write about how much there is to offer still in the things we've had for forever. Make new friends and keep the old, one silver, the other's gold kind of vibe. And the world we've been a part of for thousands and thousands of years is the gold. And this new world of lightning fast speed and technology is silver, and it's great. And there's so many cool things we can do with it. But don't lose sight of where you come from, and you come from nature. And so that's I think a very direct motivation in regard to this writing.
So it's kind of a reminder book. It's a reminder of there's something out there that's maybe even bigger than us, or a part of us that we tend to overlook. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
Yeah, there's something out there that's absolutely bigger than us by a huge margin, and that's the massive insects, which are like 100 million times the weight of us, or something. I don't know the statistic, but there's a shit ton of bugs out there. They would win if they wanted to. No, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna go that direction.
Oh, that's
okay.
There's
something bigger than us. There's something bigger. There's always been something bigger than us. We're in a huge ball of rock floating through something,
Yeah.
And so we can participate. I mean, it's beautiful. It's a celebration. It's a joy.
So where can somebody find this book, your book?
Yeah. So the Nature Thoughts, the first one is going to be self-published through Amazon. And then eventually, hopefully sometime in kind of late April, early May, we're going to have an audiobook coming out as well. And I'll be reading that. I'll be reading that audiobook.
So so it's going to be a paperback edition. There's going to be a Kindle edition that I can download onto my Kindle or my phone or whatever, wherever my Kindle subscription is. Okay. And then there's going to be an audiobook.
That's correct. And that audiobook will be through Audible.
Through Audible. All right. Good. And then your other books will follow the same path, I would think.
As far as I know, that's
okay. So so somebody will be able to find this on Amazon. And what would they search for?
Yeah, so it would be Nature Thoughts by Daniel Stigmon. And in the past I have noticed that I have to accent the fact that it is Stigmon with an O, not man with an A.
Right. Okay.
It should be the first one under Nature Thoughts. Hopefully, eventually.
Nature Thoughts by Daniel Stigmon.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, good. When do you plan to release this? You're going to be releasing this pretty soon, right?
Yeah, the release day is March 20th. It'll go live. We wanted to coincide that with the first day of spring, so that as the weather's warming up, as the sun is shining, as the days are getting longer, you have maybe a little companion to go read in the sunshine.
Okay. All right. Well, Daniel Stigmon, thank you so much for joining us today. Is there anything you want to add that we might have missed about your book or about you that you'd like to share with everybody?
No, just, go outside, get some sunshine.
Go outside and get some sunshine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go befriend a cloud. I don't know. Live your best life.
So, yeah, you wrote about clouds in this book, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. There's a whole section of clouds. I love clouds. They're my favorite thing in the universe.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if I can't even tell you how many times I've made my friends grumble a little bit because I stop in mid-conversation and take a picture of the clouds. I have a cloud group chat. Big shout out to Are You Serious and all the members out there. Thank you for sending me cloud photos.
Well, Daniel, thank you so much for joining us.
And, thank you.
I'm looking forward to this book. And when once you get it up on Amazon, we will publish that URL for it so that people can find it.
Right on. Thank you so much.
Okay. Listen, you have a great day, okay?
You as well. You as well.
You have been listening to Minutes with Mango, Life in Motion. Subscribe to hear a new and unique guest each week as they comment on their life's journey and share experiences with lifestyle, culture, and career. You can always find us at minuteswithmango.com.